So with the end of the 15th Doctor's first series, I wanted to give my take on the first Doctor Who era no one can agree on a name for. It's supposed to be a reboot, and this is supposed to be Series 1, but it pretty much takes place right after the 13th Doctor's era, and pretty much the 14th Doctor's specials, and nowhere near the time gap Classic Who did from the reboot in 2005, because that was 25 years? It's also been called RTD2, after the head writer, Russell T Davies, who wrote for the 2005 reboot, and is now working on Series 14, or Series 1, and honestly, I find myself struggling to call it Series 1. However, for the sake of this video, I'm just going to call it that, because it's, pretty much standalone. And I mean standalone in the same way that the 2005 reboot was sort of standalone, and then it did its own thing with a fresh new start, but we'll be getting more into the comparisons later. Anyways, with this new series, new Doctor, and new owner in the form of Disney, naturally there are a lot of changes to the show, some for the better and some for the worse, and personally I think it leans a little more towards the latter. For the record though, I had high hopes for this new era, and there were plenty of things I enjoyed, but I just don't think there was enough substance to make a strong overall experience. And I don't want this to come off as a whole, the old show was better, hate spewing session, but when you look at this as Russell T Davies' second era, you see a lot of stuff is reused from his first, but just done less well. And I mean, there's a lot used from the original series, down to the fact that the companion is a 19-year-old blonde girl whose name starts with R. I don't know, that's just a crazy coincidence for me. Speaking of Ruby, I'm really not sure what to make of her as a character, because she never really stood out to me. Even during her standalone story in 73 Yards, where she's on her own pretty much the whole time. At this point, obviously, I should mention that I'm going to be spoiling the whole series, so if you have any interest in it, by all means. But I think 73 Yards can be described like the rest of this era. Lots of cool concepts and great potential, but only some delivery. The episode itself is an interesting mystery, and I liked the plot, but it never really amounts to anything aside from a throwaway line in the finale. This could have been something that deeply affected the character, but she ends up just fine, and when we find out it never really happened, or it was some kind of alternate reality, I don't know, it really changes nothing, but it kind of makes me think of one of the gags in the first few episodes where the Doctor steps on a butterfly and they have this whole butterfly effect joke as a sort of cold opening. It's a neat visual, the makeup is great, but it just makes no real impact. Just to add to the Rose parallels, I'm not going to make too many. There are, of course, absent parents. Okay, it's not the same, I know. I mean, Rose had a really good episode where she came to terms with her dad's death and then went to an alternate reality with both of her parents, which was a weird but emotional way to wrap up that arc, and all while still making it emotionally complex. Especially when it came time for Rose to leave, it was dramatic. It was a lot of things tied together, came together in a really interesting way. Ruby's mother, however, and we don't even talk about her dad, I don't know. She's a mystery spanning throughout the entire series that's built up over time with these connections to the huge cosmic central plot. More specifically, Ruby is treated as some sort of anomaly, like how she is somehow able to spawn snow during certain times, and I don't even know if that's really ever explained, or how she's the key component to Sutek's evil plan in the finale, but the twist is that her mom is actually just a normal person, and the whole reason she was so special is because we believed she was, and that's how everything is made special. Oh, God, please stop with the fucking soapbox. That shit got so annoying. Let's take a moment to talk about how pretentious the Davis writing is this time around. Because it was weird during the 60th anniversary specials, during certain moments, like when David Tennant is yelling at Unit for being stupid humans, but I didn't let it get to me. Even during those episodes, like Dot and Bubble, there was a blatant hitting you over the head commentary on technology, and it was so clearly written by an older man. And I'm telling you, I liked the episode. I really did. At least overall, at least the ending, which I thought was kind of subversive for a Doctor Who episode. And was good. It was a good way of showing the Doctor's morals, including their flaws, that by trying to save everyone, that will include people who aren't very good. And those people might not want to be saved, no matter how logical it is. They won't listen to reason, which I felt was a fairly nuanced ending for this show. Fairly. And a decent commentary for current events, if he wants to talk about current events. As for the Doctor himself, I thought he had some good moments, like that aforementioned ending. I think he had a really good scene there. And I think Ncuti Gatwa is a great actor for the role. So much energy. He brings energy to every scene he's in. I think my problem is with the direction they've taken with his Doctor. Well, I'm torn on it. From what I understood of the 60th anniversary, this new Doctor has kind of let go of all that pain he's carried since the Time War and Chibnall's era, which everyone agrees is the most painful era of the show, and has become more in tune with his emotions, which, I like. It's a good new starting point. What I don't like is the overdose of emotions in every single episode. I'm not kidding when I tell you the Doctor cries in every single episode. And for me, it got old really fast. It cheapens every dramatic moment for me, because not only does it feel like the show is trying to tell you when you're supposed to be crying, but it also feels like they're trying to make every episode an Oscar-winning performance or something. And this isn't even talking about the screaming, because that happens more often than I'd like. Let me tell you about one of my all-time favorite shows, Transformers Prime. And I know what you're wondering. How does a show about an alien species coming to Earth and learning to appreciate them through the people have anything to do with an alien with a phone box? Well, in Transformers Prime, Optimus Prime is, as everyone understands, this epic leader of the Autobots with the cool voice. But when you watch that show, you learn that he never falters from that persona. And you can go really in depth as to why. There are some great analysis videos out there. But the show goes out of its way to never show Optimus losing his cool. He is always the stern, firm leader of the Autobots. That is, until one moment in the entire 3 seasons, where the Autobots come so close to bringing their homeworld back to life after millions of years of desolation, war, and nigh hopelessness. And just as soon as they have everything they need, it is taken from them, right from their hands, and leads to one of the most heartbreaking scenes for Optimus. Even the other characters step back in shock. They've never seen this man like this. And you feel it as an audience member. You feel that moment where you see this character who has never broken despite everything, despite all of the loss, all of the fighting, all of the war. This breaks him, and it impacts you. All of this to say that less is more. Less really is more here. When I see this man, the Doctor, screaming and crying over every single thing, despite the thousands of years that he has lived, you can show the Doctor being emotional. Like his sadness over losing any of his companions, or his frustration at dealing with difficult people, or his joy with people. But when every single thing makes this man cry, I can't be bothered to care when he pulls the single tear move when literally the entire universe dies. I might have cared when he screamed after a loss like that, but it comes off more as a kid raging online than someone who has lost everything. And that's another thing I find perplexing about this Doctor. When they made him a blank slate, I didn't think it would be like this. Like, he hasn't had the same experiences. I don't care how many times they mention his granddaughter Susan, he does not hold himself like someone who has endured all that he has. I understand letting go, but why does that mean a complete reset, where the reaction bordered on childish? With Matt Smith's Doctor, I liked how Full Fat Videos described him. He was this very young guy. He's the youngest guy to play the Doctor. But his eyes looked so old, and you could see the age on his face. With Ncuti, I don't get that. I just don't. Okay, that's the harshest I'm going to be on the 15th Doctor for now. I still want to give some more positives. Like, We all knew this doctor was going to be the fashion doctor, and I will say the outfits did not disappoint, for the most part at least. There were some that I think kind of bland, but then, whatever. I kind of wish we got more of the trench coat. Maybe I just missed Tennant and Capaldi, but I think it's fine, honestly. And works well for who the Doctor is. As Colin Baker said, the Sixth Doctor, it makes more sense for someone who is trying to blend in with humans to wear something more normal. This is, of course, probably because his Doctor got the most unique outfit, which, hey, I like. I also really like the episode Rogue, for example, not because of the aliens who, and I quote, want to cosplay the world. See, it's like the Slitheen, but without the farts. That's why Space Babies sucks. I cannot physically talk about that episode or I'll lose it. Anyways, I liked Rogue because it does what I think we needed more of this series, which was built on the characters and developed relationships. And I like this as a progression for the Doctor's emotional availability. This time pursuing a relationship instead of fearing it, like with River Song or any of his companions. I also felt the episode had a decent emotional moment at the end, and I think this was a good crying moment that doesn't drag on, and even has a moment afterwards that had some good room to breathe. Overall, I think this series suffers from being too all over the place and thinking it can get away with it. Like, it wants me to be on board with a musical number in the middle of an episode, or a dance number at the end, or a fucking farting ship, but still cry every time the Doctor is upset over something. It just tries to do it all and then pat itself on the back. So my hopes for the second series are quite a few, but most of all, I hope R2D can just take a step back and let some other people write things. I mean, Boom was written by Stephen Moffat and was generally considered pretty good. At least have a better balance of it in a meaningful way. I still think Ncuti has a lot of potential as a Doctor, but I guess we'll have to see where he goes next time. Let me know what you think, because I think this is a pretty decisive era, so I'm sure there are a lot of things other people appreciate more, and hey, maybe you could change my mind on some of these things. I'm happy to listen, because I do want to like the new stuff, because I like Doctor Who in general, and if there's one thing I know about this show is that every Doctor has good and bad parts in their eras, and there are always people to appreciate them. Well, that's that. Thank you, and goodbye.